Dancing with his goods. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And those present already know what this meeting's about, but for those of you who watch on Granicus or on TV, this is a meeting of the Citizens Involvement Council, and this is all the neighborhood associations, your representatives, come together once a month to discuss issues, provide us with communication, and communication from us back to their neighborhoods. So with that in order, I'll pass this over to Chris, our staff liaison, to do a roll call.
Berkeley Hills, Amanda Lamar.
That's 2 for her. Have you heard from her?
Not today. Kenina, Howard Post. Yeah. Paul Edgar.
Here.
Larry Hamlin.
Here.
Hazel Grove, Kathy Hogan. Here. Tom O'Brien.
Here.
Helen Gale, Ray Gordon. Here. William Gifford.
Here.
McLaughlin, Alice Fox. Here. Bill Daniels. Parkway, Steve Van Hammerbeck.
Here.
Tom Goddard.
Here.
Rivercrest, Patty Brown. Here. Burn, Utah.
Here.
South End, Ingrid Rickenbach. Here. David Rickenbach.
Here.
Main Street, Linda Orson. Excuse.
Yes.
Chamber of Commerce, Rachel Gunderson. Here.
Okay, thank you very much. And who else do we have here? Okay, let's go around the room for those who are also present to introduce themselves. Our mayor.
And I'm Renee King with Providence 11,000.
Okay. Matt, how do you spell your last name? Thank you. I was joking earlier about the fact that this meeting went on to 10, but it's a true fact, and so we're going to try to be a little bit more right, prompt, on time. I believe that William has his timer present, but the presentations are limited, as well as the question and answers for each of those, because we do afterwards have a roundtable where we go through each neighborhood and allow them some time to speak. So we're going to try and keep this right on schedule tonight, just like the city council meetings are. Okay, so first we'd like to have Gaffney Lane School Walking Path, Matt Doyle, a 10-minute presentation with 10 minutes of question and answers. Please come up to the microphones. Yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing me time to speak tonight. My name is Matt Dale.
Lower it down a little bit.
I live in the Hillendale neighborhood, and my kids go to school in the Gaffney Lane neighborhood, or at Gaffney Lane Elementary. And when my daughter, who's a freshman, currently went to Gaffney Lane for 7 years, many of those years they had a running walking program there where they gave students mileage-based awards for physical activity. And they don't currently have that program, so I went to the PTA at Gaffney Lane and decided to start that. Part of that process is putting in a walking path like John McLaughlin School and Mount Pleasant School just did. And when I started learning more about the process of putting that path in, and I found about information about the Oregon City Metro grant, I decided that because Gaffney Lane neighborhood does not currently have a walking path or an off-site park, that I could probably do something for the community as well as the school at the same time. So what I'm proposing is applying for the grant and a few other grants to put in a half-mile walking path on the Gaffney Lane Elementary property, and it would serve as a community resource that would coincide with the outdoor classroom that Gaffney Lane just put in within the last couple of years. It's a 5-foot wide asphalt path, and and I'm here to ask the support of Hillendale Neighborhood Association and Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association in the form of a letter of support that I could submit with the grant application. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, there might be a few questions.
Yes.
Identify yourself too.
Have you talked to the school, are they in support of you?
They are. Yes, I'm in touch with in contact with the principal, John Olson, and they're in support of this. And he's talked to the Oregon City School District, and they're in support of that also.
I would like to mention that.
Thank you.
Matt, my name is William Gifford again.
Yes, sir.
You may be aware that the CIC is attempting to reactivate the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association.
I am.
And I expect that you've spoken with Chris about that. And we're hoping to have a meeting, and we'll talk about this later this evening. But the deadline for the Metro Enhancement Grants are May 6th.
Yes, sir.
And my suspicion is that that application would carry more weight to the Metro Enhancement Group if it came from a neighborhood association rather than from an individual. And since what I guess you're pushing for right now is that since Gaffney Lane is not officially reactivated, that the CIC stands in its stead and can write a letter of recommendation. I'll just ask you the loaded question. Would you be able to be, or would you be interested at all in participating in the Gaffney Lane reactivation?
I'm not, and I believe I live in the Hillendale Neighborhood Association.
Aha! Your chair is sitting right behind you. Okay, so you live in Hillendale, and okay. So the next question then is, you mentioned that it was a walking and running trail.
Yes, sir.
Are there any conflicts in use in that? I know that sometimes walking and bicycling makes conflicts and like that. Do runners and walkers have any conflicts?
I don't think so. I mean, I look at the Chapin Park walking path, and I see runners and walkers out there, and I think it's a multi-use path, and as long as bikes weren't,
Are you proposing any stretching stations of any sort? Sometimes I see posts, where people like to, stretch out their hamstrings and things like that. And what's the total amount of the grant request?
$25,000.
Okay.
Does anyone here have some suggestions of what the next step is?
Yes, I do.
Tom O'Brien, Hazel Grove, Westland Farms neighborhood. I live very close to McLaughlin, and I'm familiar with what they've got going. I think they're a wonderful idea. However, I should at least alert you to the fact of some of the issues or problems involved therein. I know that some of my neighbors have attempted to use a walking path even while school is in session, and have been thrown off the property basically by teachers. There are a lot of people who consider that to be their personal dog park. So just a couple of things heads up that you may want to plan for and anticipate.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion to,
Well, William's got
I was going to make the motion, but Kathy beat me to it.
or you can make it out there?
Okay, I'll make a motion that the CIC write a letter to the Metro Enhancement Committee recommending approval of the grant. Although I haven't seen the details of the grant, I think we can support it in concept.
Then my question would be, does he need to, who's writing the grant?
I'm writing the grant as a member of the Gaffney Lane PTA.
Should we not see that at least at the next meeting, if it's due in May, so we can see if there's anything that's...
I think it's time critical.
But you said May.
May 6th is the deadline.
May 6th at 3 p.m.
And when's our next meeting? I'm only thinking that we should probably, as CSC, look at it before we just prove something with.
I said in concept. May 2nd is the next CIC meeting.
Paul?
I would call it for any, I would leave that up to the board to you do that timely and help them get it out. So,
Matt, would you be able to get me a copy of that application as soon as you've got it together?
Or if we give you, that way, if we get it email basis, that way at least some of us can look at it and say, yeah, we have no problem with it.
How
That's
close
all I'm
is it?
saying.
How close is it to be?
I'm very close to being done. I'm collecting support letters right now, and I believe I'm going to get one from. I've been told I'm going to get one from PGE because they have power lines that run across the property, and Oregon City Chamber of Commerce has said they would, and I'm hoping for one
Is
of
there
them.
a chamber representative right here? And
No.
good if you like. My suggestion is for you to please be aware that the Hillendale Neighborhood Association meets tomorrow evening. And my suspicion, and although I don't set the agenda, is that it might be able to be squeezed into, and you know, a motion could be made to have Hillendale write a separate letter. Call the question.
Okay. All those in favor of, is it the motion of writing the letter?
Yes.
That's what it is. Okay, all those in favor. Again, to me, this is dependent on what's in. I want to make sure that we know. We just don't blindly approve something without knowing what's in it. All those in favor of approving the CIC supporting this, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Approved?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're right on schedule. Next, 5-minute presentation for the Providence William. I'm sorry. William Falls. His name sticks in my head.
Sorry for having my back to you.
And 5 minutes of question and answers, and this is Renee King, I believe.
Hi, yes, so I wanted to come here tonight, one, just to introduce myself, because I'm new to Providence, Willamette Falls. I've been with Providence for about 14 years. I spent a good chunk of that time at Providence, Milwaukee, so I've been in the Clackamas County area for quite a while, and I live in Clackamas County. I took about a 2.5-year break from the living and working in the county and went to Providence, Portland for 2.5 years, and then was asked to come back and work at Providence, Willamette Falls in January. So many of you might know Kathy Richardson was in my role for many, many a year, and she took another job within Providence and is doing some really cool work with our orthopedics team. And so I'm now your public relations liaison for Providence. And in addition, we have Providence Milwaukee Hospital, which is in the county, but I'm serving for Providence as the community relations person for the whole county. So I'm working with our communities as far as out as Decatur, Damascus, Wilsonville, so I'm kind of out and about. What I wanted to talk with you tonight about is probably this summer, Providence, Willamette Falls would like to talk with the city about a new master plan for the hospital. There was some discussion a couple of years ago about a master plan and that stalled, and that was before the affiliation talks started with Providence. And so now that we kind of have all that behind us and have that in order, we're looking at a master plan again, because right now we don't have an active master plan and we really kind of can't do anything. So what I wanted to ask tonight is to get on your individual neighborhood association meeting agendas to be able to come in, I think, May, June, if you've got in that time frame, and to be able to have some specifics to talk about what it is that we will be bringing forward to the city, get your questions answered, make sure that we're on track, and have support of the neighborhood associations before we start that planning process with the city. So that's what I'm coming for. So I can now, at this point, now that you have a face to a name, I can contact you individually. I don't know if everyone is interested in having us come. Some of the neighborhood associations that might be further out may not want us to, but I brought cards, and I can either leave them with Chris or walk them around. Do you care? Walk them around.
Renee, when you're walking around, I'm just wondering, other than the you didn't say concept plan, what was it?
Master plan.
Master plan. Is there another role that you play in public relations to our communities that you can speak about besides master plan, or is it all about that?
No, anything you want to know about Providence, I'm happy to do my best. I can tell you a little bit about what I do at the hospital, if you'd
That
like.
might help.
Is that helpful?
That'll give people a better idea what you could also speak about.
Well, I saw that some of you
Another
have
minute
late
and a half.
April meetings. We'll probably be further along then, if you've got if you want to gather some people together. I'm just not sure that we'll be ready to meet before May. We can try it if you have an April meeting.
My role as the public relations manager is I work with our administrative team for all the internal communication needs at the hospital. We also work with media for any needs, people that might be looking for medical experts to be able to talk about the disease of the month or something that might be happening in the community. You know, one of our trailblazers pulls a hamstring, you know, that kind of stuff. So we work with our media for that kind of thing. I've been going to a lot of the chamber events, working with chambers in the whole county. Just trying to be a good neighbor and but the master plan I thought would be of interest to
That's a good idea.
many of you.
Okay, questions? I see, William, were you up there for a question?
I'm sure that you're aware that the hospital is in the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association.
Right.
And it was a couple of years ago when I was chair of that association that Denise McGriff and I went downtown and reviewed the master plan at that time. And then after spending a lot of time on that, then to have it all shelved, and we understand now the reasons that we had to go through all that again. But I would suggest a couple of things. First of all, the McLaughlin Association is the first place you hit insofar as making a presentation. And Alice, do you have an office? You aren't secretary, you're the treasurer. Not just the treasurer, you're the capital T treasurer. And Damon Mabey is the secretary now. And Tim Powell and Gordon Wilson. Gordon Wilson are the co-chairs, and so those would be the ones that you would contact to get a presentation with them. I would suggest that when you have that master plan, that we would very much like to look at it. And as yet, the CIC doesn't have a land use chair, although I'm kind of lobbying for the CIC needing a land use chair. But until we do, I think it would be appropriate to ask them to bring that master plan to the Entice.
I'm so sorry, that was my point.
Shame on you.
I know. It would be calling me a
Perfect as dance time.
But should I ask to be on your June agenda? Because that would probably time
You can certainly ask, yeah. Well,
Very well to be able to show you what it is that we've been taking around. You know, so people are not interested in
Yeah.
having this come to your individual ones, we can certainly present here as well.
Let's put her down for June at this point.
Okay, that'd be great.
If you want.
And I think, William, I can say, while we are just starting the process, it's considerably, I think there are many things that will be different. I know one of the things that was of concern was a fairly large, what they call the tower. There will not be a tower.
looming over the neighborhood buildings, yes.
There will not be a tower in this master plan.
No one's
No,
backyard.
we are looking to pave a gravel lot. So,
Well, it's a shame you have to have a master plan for that because the whole neighborhood wants that paved.
you know which gravel lot I'm talking
Oh,
about?
yeah.
Yeah, we can't, I think,
I know
my
you
understanding
can't.
is we can't do anything right now,
You
but
can't do
we
anything.
do, so that's one of the things we want to do, we want to pave the gravel lot, and my understanding is we want to improve the front entrance area for better wayfinding, and right now there's a separate entrance to our birthplace than the main hospital. We want to get that into one entrance for our patient safety.
There's one other recommendation I think for you is to be sure that you are bringing the homeowners association, the what's it called?
William, yes, I have.
Trillium Park Homeowners Association. Make sure that they are involved at every step, so we don't have to go through what we had to go through before with the Children's Center.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thanks.
One brief one.
Yes, sir.
Providence,
Microphone?
Happy Valley.
Yes.
Is it still on schedule to, or give me an idea what the schedule is?
For a hospital? Yeah, that is a ways out. For a number of reasons. One of the, probably the main reasons is the slowing growth of that community. And then still working with the Sunrise Corridor, getting that in, because until there's appropriate transportation in place, we wouldn't want to break ground. I think the next thing that you would see out there, and my guess is probably in the 5-year plan, is maybe a medical office building or an ambulatory surgical center, kind of taking some baby steps to growing into a hospital. I don't think it was ever our intention to plunk the hospital down. I think we were looking to grow that site. But right now, there's nothing on the near future. So we're still your hospital here in.
Are you still then frozen on the site, the current site of Willamette Falls as being the location of choice because of the infrastructure that's there? Or would you, or could they ever look at reciting away from the bluff in some other location?
Yeah, I don't know that I have enough knowledge to answer that. I can tell you that there's no discussion right now to move. I know that, but I don't know about, possibilities 10 years down the road, that kind of thing. So.
We're talking about an area outside of Oregon City?
When?
The one that Paul's talking about? Is that right?
You're talking about the Happy Valley.
The Happy Valley one, it's the dominoes, which comes first and how they come, and they own the land on 172nd.
We're between 152nd and 162nd on 211.
Does that have any impact on us?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
It comes into the conversation of what monies are made available.
Oh.
Because if they have all of the money going through that facility,
Yeah.
it precludes some other investments within Clackamas County. And so we're just, it's allocation of money.
There's no money being allocated to that site right now.
Okay. I figured she'd know.
The money's coming here right now, so as soon as we can get our master plan, so we can go out there and do things.
Okay.
Two things. One, without a tower, how do you land the planes?
I know. We're out there with our little
As long as there's no moon roofs on it. Yeah. And the second thing is, are you the person to contact, say that, I'm hearing about the national plan and all that great stuff, let's say we want to have a doctor come talk to her.
Absolutely. You bet.
Well, great.
Yeah. And
Filter,
we meant to connect with Sarah. We used to do, I don't think we ever met, we realized, but we did work over the phone for years.
Oh, great. No, but that's great, so we could just.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, now to Tom.
Tom O'Brien, Renee. I have two concerns that have been expressed to me by others. They're not my concerns, but the first time around, I guess, there was considerable consternation about people parking on the street and that not being remedied.
Mhm.
It sounds like maybe with paving the gravel lot, that's being considered.
That will help. We've also looked at how parking is designated on our surface lots. So looking to make sure that we've got some 2-hour parking, for instance, so when people are coming in for meetings, they can park off the street but close to an entrance. Looking at trying to get some employee parking in places that meet the employees' needs so that they're getting off the street. So
The other
we're
issue
working on that
that
one.
has been called to my attention is that Wayfair signage beyond what you've mentioned
Uh-huh.
is a direly needed thing throughout the complex.
We just had to get from point A to point B when you get in the door.
General
I know.
Wayfair signage throughout the hospital.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna come in from the lobby and get to where diagnostic imaging is, or, yeah. And I think,
Points within the hospital to
Mhm.
other points.
yeah, I would agree. Being new there, I'm seeing it with fresh eyes myself.
I see you do.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And I think some of those are actually kind of easy things that we can bite off pretty quickly.
It's not that expensive, it's just a matter of paying attention to it.
Right.
Okay, I think that covers it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
I hope to see you in June.
All
Do
right.
you want me to reach out to you, or do you want to reach out to me if you want me to come to your meetings? What
I
would
think
you-
they'll have your email, and they'll probably go back to their constituents and
Okay.
inquire.
I will reach out though to your
We're meeting this week, so I'll just be forwarding that.
Please, thank you. And Park Place, Steve, I think,
Yes.
That's Steve.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think Park Place is the other one we definitely do feel like we should.
Right now, I got a full agenda for that meeting, but I'll see what I can do to work in.
Thank you.
Okay, next, this is appropriate because this is one of the things we have at our Park Place meeting, except Dr. Scott, what's his last name, from up in Portland, Burns from Portland State. Earthquake preparedness. This is Living on Shaky Ground, How to Survive an Earthquake by Sarah, and it's a 20-minute presentation and 10 minutes of question and answers.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Stegmaier. I am a program coordinator with Clackamas County Emergency Management.
Sarah, why don't you trade places with me
Okay.
so that people can see you?
Okay.
What a guy. What a guy.
I'm gonna have to just go across
Right in front of me.
Right? You got to-
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I have your hand up here, though, if you like. There's more. What I wanted to talk to you about today is the fact that we all have to learn how to prepare for an earthquake. I work for the emergency management department at the county, and we've been working with our board this month to declare it Earthquake Awareness Month, also Tsunami Awareness Month, and we want to get this message out to the county. We have various formats, we have various groups, and so we wanted to come here tonight to share the information with you. We've done a drill at the county the last couple of years, and each year we've been expanding the group that we reach out to. Originally, we started with our employees, and we asked that they practice how to drop, cover, and hold on, which is the prescribed personal protective actions to take during an earthquake. And then each year we've expanded that group, and we continue to find new ways and new places to share the information. So I'm really excited to extend the invitation to come here, because you all represent even more of Clackamas County than we could reach without you. So what we're doing is on April 28th at 10 a.m., we're asking anyone and everyone to practice drop, cover, and hold, which is this action that's recommended to take when you feel the earthquake start. We have a lot of recent examples of pretty catastrophic earthquakes, and we're reminded constantly, I think, of why it's important to do this. Even as adults, it's really important that we practice, and I know a lot of times adults are very resistant to going through the physical motions of doing something like this, but it is found that going through the motions gives us some muscle memory, it gives us some foundations to draw from when something does happen, so we're not left guessing what the best way to handle it is. I've given you all a handout. I invite you to pick out, if you'd like more of these, please get in touch with me. I'll leave my business card. And inside here is a flyer about the drill that we have. We've put together quite a few resources for people who want to participate. We've put a website up. It's linked to the main county page, which is www.clackamas.us. It's also on our emergency management homepage, but that's a little bit more complicated to get to than just the Clackamas County page. There's a lot of really great information on there. There's frequently asked questions. There's pieces such as addressing the triangle of life, which you may hear about out in the email circulation streams, all types of places that came from. And there's a link to why dropping, covering, and holding is prescribed and recommended above this other method. So I really encourage you to check it out. We want to reach other people with this information too. So if you do have a group that you can reach out to, we ask that you do that. If you'd like us to direct some information in somebody's way, we'd be happy to do that. So please take this back. Encourage others to check it out. One of the other things that's really critical that people do when preparing for earthquakes is having a personal supply of emergency stuff. And so this document, Living on Shaky Ground, it came from the state, goes through all of those things that you need to know. And if you can tell anybody what other thing they can do other than learning how to drop, cover, and hold, I really suggest that they get an emergency supply kit. And you can buy them, you can make them, but having one is really important. Having money in it, things like that. Things that people don't always think of really helps when you need to rely on it during an unexpected event. So, really appreciate the opportunity to come share with you, and would love to answer any questions that you have.
Mind if I add a few things to it? I know in preparation for what we were going to do in Park Place with Dr. Scott Burns, I looked up some information on the internet in case of earthquakes. I'm not worried about tsunami up on the top of the hill where I'm at, in the city. But one thing I talk to when I give talks to Lions is, and I noted it in here, it's the first thing I look for, is household disaster supply kit. It happened last year that the house next to me burned down. And I hear it. You hear it every time on the news. The one thing I wish I would have done is backed up my family photographs or done something with them. And I'm trying to tell everyone that while these are the really important medical things, there's so often you hear, I lost the house, I lost the furniture, but what's really important, I lost my whole history of my family. So I'm doing something. I started it last week. I backed up everything, and I took a copy of it up to my safety deposit box, just so if it's not just at your house, it's somewhere else you can get to it. Plus copies of, like you say here, copies of vital documents, deeds, insurance, bank accounts. And it says an accessible location, preferably outdoors in a large, watertight, easily moved container. But I'm just trying to tell everybody, if you've got important things like that, especially family, important documents, put them onto a drive, scan them, or do something, and put them in a safety deposit box or somewhere where you can get to them. And I also heard the same thing when I looked on that website about your medications. Make sure your medications are, I'm diabetic, other people are, you've got to have that medicine handy, so if an earthquake strikes or a fire, you don't have time to go looking through your cupboards. You better have it ready somehow to run with you and get outdoors, because you may not be able to get those important items if there was a major earthquake here. Dog food, that's right. My cat would be upset with me. So, questions now.
Just a couple things. I was actually down in Los Angeles when the Northridge earthquake happened, and it was just over the hill for me, and it was pretty intense. But I went to a doorway. Is that, if you don't have something right away to go underneath, is that still a good second plan?
It's something you can do if you don't have another good option. It's not recommended because doorwells aren't reinforced the way that they used to be, so they typically aren't the strong place that they once were. So if you can find an inside wall, something that would be more structurally solid, would be more recommended.
Ask you a question about that, because again, I've been watching a lot of television about this. You think I'd be paranoid about an earthquake, but I'm not. I don't want to lose my crystal. No, the thing that is important, what I'm hearing, is that instead of walls or the portals, is that you should get next to a desk or anything where if a wall did collapse or anything, that it falls at a V and creates a hole where you can get in and out. Is that true, or do you know anything about that? The triangle. That's it.
That is the triangle life, and I put a copy.
I heard the wall.
So when you go ding, 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 ding,
There's a sheet in the front of your packet here that addresses just this. This is a really commonly shared way to deal with an earthquake, and it's not what's recommended here in the United States. Due to our building construction, our building codes, the buildings don't typically collapse the way that they do in other countries. So a lot of officials still recommend the drop cover hold as the method to take, because you don't want to be left trying to find that ideal place to protect yourself, but rather have that ingrained response that I'm going to, it's right here, get under this table and take cover. A lot of times what happens in our buildings that do live up to pretty high standards is, the ceiling tiles come down, the light fixtures come down, and a lot of those falling objects are what injure people during an earthquake.
I just wanted to suggest something that I didn't purposely do, but it ended up really helping me in the work after the Northridge. Is you have your alarm clocks, it's plugged in, you never realize that putting a battery in is the thing that really saves it, because then you could be listening to all the updates, which I did, so that was a real nice thing.
And the alarm goes off to tell you there's an earthquake.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have waken up otherwise, no.
We have a lot of great resources, and there's some good reading material on the Triangle of Life issue. If you go to some of the websites, if you go to our Clackamas.us site and go to the Shakedown, there's some good references there. We'll be adding as we gather new information. But the website reference at the top of this light sheet is a great place for outlining why we recommend what we do as far as how to protect yourself.
There's really something called quake gel.
That happens in landfills.
Hold small valuables in place with removable putty and zero wax for a quake gel.
I have not seen that, but
Quake gel.
I've got it on any glass shelf.
Religious.
If you sell collectibles, if you do that, it holds them in place. So if they're, if it's really strong, like a 9 point, it may not. But when you've got crystal and all kinds of bases, that really holds them in place. You can get them at collectible stores.
Okay, Kathy Hogan. Our neighborhood association had somebody come out from Clackamas County, I believe it was, and they gave a talk on being prepared for a disaster, a windstorm or whatever, and we've had the fire department come out and it's like have a garbage can over there, or bins or whatever. But my theory is true. We always say to put it somewhere safe, but that place not be safe. It doesn't hurt to have two places. I have it upstairs, so everything downstairs could collapse because of the stuff on top. So that if you can't get anything downstairs, maybe when it comes down, it's still in the container. So at least some things, a flashlight, a couple things, so that you could at least search out. Because to me, if you only have it in one place.
Definitely. Just having thought through that will give you a huge advantage too.
I've got a mess all over.
We have Jim Canino, the spokesman for Oregon Department of Geology.
Okay.
So James Ryan lives here in Oregon City, and James tells me when we've been having strong discussions about bridges and the possibility of bridges coming down, and that bridges might come down. He said, if we have a Cascadia, there's no way for it. And he says the probability of us having a Cascadia type event are immense. So he was trying to inform me that he felt that the probability is very, very high, and we can have an equal event as to what happened in Japan, and we're just long overdue. And he just was very firm about it. He wouldn't back down. So he kind of left a strong impression that we better be aware and prepared.
Very true. Our experts all say that. So.
Thank you. And that's kind of why I was saying earlier, it may sound stupid just to tell everybody, remind them about their family photos and things like that, but if you don't start planning now, it's going to be too late when it does happen. That's the problem. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Pardon? Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. I thought it was just a love letter. There's a gray Dodge pickup with lights on in the parking lot.
Gray or beige?
Gray Dodge pickup, lights on, parking in the parking lot. Motors running. There's Dodge decals. No. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. Main Street project presentation. 20 minutes and 10 minutes question answers. Nancy.
Thank you, Tom. I left at your places some handouts that will You spent a little more time on this by yourselves, but I did want to give you an update. Because you'll see some activities on Main Street, one of which is turning Main Street back into two-way, and we don't want you guys to get down there and be going the wrong way, so. So there are 3 projects scheduled for downtown, and there are some other items needed, like water line replacement or paving, but we don't have the revenues to do that. But we've received money from the state to complete 3 different projects, and I might note that these 3 projects are based on quite a bit of past planning for the downtown, and past planning, just a few years ago planning, and then the most recent planning. And doing, replacing sidewalks and improving the looks of downtown have been really in our plans in our transportation system plan, and the downtown community plan, and then more recently a downtown parking study was done that addresses some of the parking needs downtown. And we've been working hard on designing a project because of requests from all the downtown businesses and the Main Street Association to kind of give it a facelift, because there's some parts of downtown where the sidewalks are really looking worn out, and then there's even places downtown still where there's gaps in the sidewalks. And then one of the big concerns was the pedestrians crossing at 10th and Main, and how that really is not pedestrian friendly. So, as you know, the Oregon City Arch Bridge is closed right now for its historic preservation project, and we've been working very hard with ODOT for them to understand that there could be some not so great impacts on the downtown with that closure, because so many people come over that bridge to go toward downtown. They also come over the bridge to drive through downtown and go elsewhere in Oregon City. But even that can be inconvenient for folks coming. So we worked with them, and we also applied for several grants to do different types of projects downtown. And as an outcome from the bridge closure, ODOT assigned some money to study the circulation downtown, because there was a proposal made that, well, gosh, maybe if we made Main Street two-way while the bridge is closed, could even invite more traffic to the downtown off of 99E. And I guess it wouldn't be so confusing, and so we did do that study, and that was funded by ODOT, and it turned out that yes, there's a very good chance that we'll get more traffic downtown even when the bridge is closed if it's two-way. So we, ODOT then, after completion of that study, which recommended the two-way traffic in phases, the first phase to be implemented when the bridge is closed, and then the second phase to be implemented when the bridge reopens. That plan was adopted by the City Commission, and then ODOT is providing funding for what we're calling the near-term project. And now I'll turn you to this first handout, which is sort of an outline of what I'm talking about tonight. And towards the bottom of the first page, there's Project 1, and that's where we'll be converting Main Street between 6th and 9th to two-way right away. And of course, nothing happens right away when you're dealing with ODOT and permitting and plans and construction, et cetera, because there's a lot of complications, especially with ODOT funding. You know, they have to do a lot of approvals and permitting, and it's all very slow. But we are almost ready to put it out to bid now. And so we're hoping to get that project. It's not a very long duration project. That's probably only 4 to 6 week project. And we should be starting, now that it's already April, it'll probably be in May sometime. And then this gives you some details about what we're doing for that. And in the interest of time, I'll leave, I gave you copies of all this, so you can really look at it more closely. Then the second project is project number 2. And this is a project for which we applied for pedestrian bike funding through ODOT. And it's the first time we've applied for the funding, and we got it. And this is where we're going to be making significant pedestrian improvements at the 10th and Main Street intersection, including what's going to result in what we call a tabletop intersection. So you actually go up when you go into the intersection and down. So it really is probably the most effective traffic slowing, traffic calming, thank you, William, traffic calming type of installation that we have. And you wouldn't put it all over the place. It's great for a four-way stop because everyone has to stop anyway, so it doesn't, if you put it in an intersection which was a through intersection, it would not be good because people would be bumping, and that's really annoying for your vehicles. So it's also going to include a little bit of storm drainage improvements, some landscaping, and some street lighting at that intersection specifically. And in your packet, this drawing here shows the details for what you would expect to see at that intersection. It's not exactly, because this was actually an exhibit that we put in our funding application packet, but it does show the details that we're going to be installing at that intersection to give you an idea of what we're trying to do. Then project number 3 is the final project, and we also got ODOT funding for this. We got $2 million from ODOT, some of it's state money and some of it's federal highway money, and it is going to then do the facelift on the sidewalks between 5th and 10th Street downtown. It also will provide a similar type of pedestrian crossing that we're putting at 10th and Main down by the elevator. So when you're coming off the elevator going up 7th Street, it'll be much, much more pedestrian friendly. And there's talk about pedestrian traffic. I think we have hundreds and hundreds of people a day that ride the elevator, and that the way it's configured right now is not particularly pedestrian friendly. We're also going to be putting new street lighting up and down Main Street between 5th and 10th. And we've had a lot of complaints that the street lighting is dim and it's not consistent, etc. And so we'll be replacing all the street lights, and we're going to be using LED fixtures. One of the grants asked the applicants to come up with project features that used alternative energy and would conserve energy. And so we are using the LED street lights, not LED street lights. And the question, of course, that we want to answer for you is, what about the color? Because as any of you that have used LED streetlights for the holidays, you know, the first time you pull out the white ones you just bought, they look blue when you put them out, and they're really not that nice warm light that we remember in regular light bulbs. So the LED lighting has advanced significantly in the last several years, and they actually do have a palette of lighting tones, and we'll be going for the yellower, warmer light, which is similar to what you'd see in any street light. Then the other thing we'll be doing is we're not taking out existing street trees. We'll probably be adding some more. And the other thing you'll see is the parking meters are going to be changed out from the coin meters that we have today at each slot to the electric ones, solar-powered electric meters where you use your credit card. And there will be one on each block on each side of Main Street. So that'll be good, kind of modernizing our parking meter system.
That mean an increase in rates?
It doesn't mean an increase in rates, but there is an increase in rates coming because our rates are way too low. And they really are. I mean, we are not competitive with other towns, and there are a lot of improvements that we could be saving up for in terms of parking and facilities, etc. So the city embarked on a parking study, oh gosh, it was 2 or 3 summers ago now. 2 summers ago? 2 summers ago. And it was we hired a guy named Rick Williams, who has done a lot of parking studies for Portland. And he did a very thorough job looking at our downtown and finding out, what could we do to maximize our parking available for people visiting and customers, not necessarily employees. And then how do you deal with employees that are going to be down there all day? So you still leave space in front for the visitor. And there were many phases of improvements to parking, and one of them was to raise the rates. And then, interesting though, if you do raise the rates, those little coin meters they'd have to be emptying them like very frequently. So it's very labor intensive. So these are better for higher rates. So that summarizes. I just wanted to also point out the handouts I gave you. These little drawings kind of give you an idea of where the two-way is going to be, where it includes a little more descriptors as to what will be on Main Street. One is for the near-term projects, and then the other one is for when the bridge opens, what kind of circulation to expect then. And then the other thing I gave you, in case you're interested in more detail, as to what the intersections are going to look like. Are we doing both outs? Aren't we doing both outs? This drawing shows the details at all of the intersections. So that way you can have a really good idea of what changes to expect downtown. So that's it, and there's more things that you can read, more details in the handouts, but I wanted to keep it brief and then let those that wish to study it more.
So, can I clarify before we get into the questions? So this first map of the near term is showing it a two-way, and what this map is showing that it goes back to one way again?
No, it just shows.
One arrow going one way and one going.
Yeah, no, it's still two-way, but this one includes 7th Street being restriped for two-way, and it shows some of the other details. And there's all of those, all of the language in the white boxes are the descriptors to look at.
Tom?
I think Paul and Kathy were ahead of me.
Oh, there's names right here. I'm sorry, I didn't see those. Who's first? Were you watching, Chris? Let's go with Kathy. No, Paul always goes first, Kathy. Go ahead, Paul.
We got to put it down. Oh, okay. Well, I just had a question. I've complained about it before.
This is question and answers, not complaints.
It's a very big concern because it's come close to happening many times, not to just me and everybody else, but if you were, the bridge was open and you were going to not go across the bridge, but you want to take that left, you have a green, and the people coming at you have a green. But you want to be into the far right because you don't want to go around the block.
I'm coming off the bridge or going onto the bridge?
Well, if you're right by the elevator, you want to take a left and not go on the bridge, but you want to be in the right-hand lane so you can go take a left by the mill.
Wait a minute, I'm confused.
Coming down from the elevator.
Yeah, with the two-way,
you want to turn back.
With the two-way, it would be resolved?
Yes.
It would.
Well, I didn't get what the question was.
So you are going to make that a two-way.
7th Street will be two-way.
So that would stop that problem, because before you'd have two people, one coming off the bridge, one going, and they're going to slide because one wants to go there, so that was resolved.
It's going to be two ways. Have it your way.
10 years, I talked about that 10 years ago.
Yes. The other thing the thing that we're still in conversations with ODOT about is how does that signal work at the end of the bridge. We would like to see left turns allowed off the bridge, so you can go directly left onto Main Street. Recognizing that if you have a left turn at 5 o'clock in the evening, you're going to back that lane up all the way to West Lynn. So we don't want that to happen. So what we're working with ODOT on is having left turns allowed most of the time, but not when there's too much congestion in that area. And there are a lot of things you can do. You can have a sign in the intersection that lights up when, like between 4 to 6 p.m., no left turns, 4 to 6 p.m. You can also have detection where if you had some sort of a backup or heavier traffic another time of the day just because, you just never know. You could also have something that's actuated by radar. There's lots of different techniques, loops, that would start the light flashing, no left turns, if there's just too much traffic anyway. So we're in conversation. Their first reaction was no left turns off the bridge. But I think that was based on a study that wasn't, I don't think we had quite all the players in the room that we wanted to have. And the more I'm hearing from citizens and downtown is that, oh man, we want left turns off that bridge. And yeah, we could understand why you don't want trucks and buses coming left turn because it's just too tight. But we can have trucks and buses do the right turns and make that clear to those types of vehicles. And then also try to handle the left turns in an intelligent, well-managed manner.
Turns only in police chases.
Nancy, thank you for sharing with us. I really appreciate the update on these. I think it looks like a wonderful plan, and I think it goes right along with what the parking study had recommended. I thought he did a fantastic job with this study. I do have one question of you. Are you making a separate presentation to Main Street, Oregon City? The reason I ask that is we have a representative from Main Street, Oregon City on the CIC, but there's pretty much of a phantom. For as long as I've been on the CIC, I think they've attended one meeting. So I don't really consider that they're representing their organization. So are you doing a separate presentation?
We're going to address that in a few minutes here.
We've had ongoing public involvement with the downtown and Main Street businesses and property owners. So we actually did do this. We had a Friday morning presentation at Bush Furniture a couple weeks ago and went over these exact same things. And then we're going to have another meeting when we start getting more closer to construction.
Okay.
And I forgot to mention the streetlights. We picked streetlights, and we have to thank my Karen Morey, she's a fabulous history knowledge person for the city. She did a bunch of research, and she's got all kinds of photos, and she came up with the pictorial history of streetlights in Oregon City. One of the historic types are Copperheads. Anybody want those? But the one that we're going to choose is very similar to what's down there today, and it's matches what they had in the past, except that it has a dark top because we're trying to reduce the amount of light pollution and try to be respectful for the dark skies. So it's a similar shape and size, but it has a lid on it. And then it's got the LED.
Not a gas lamp?
Don't want to blind incoming aliens. Okay, William.
I had a few things. Again, thank you very much, Nancy, for being here. But one of my things was I'll follow up with the question about the lighting. The lighting. I want to make sure that the lighting that is proposed at the 10th and Main Street is going to be coordinated with all the rest of the lighting that's going on Main Street.
Yes.
Okay, because there's a picture here.
Yes.
It didn't look exactly like what we were talking about.
No, that one was we included that with our funding application.
I understand,
Then we selected.
I just want to make sure that they're all of the same filth.
Actually, our project manager is Eric Wargren, and he's handling all the projects, so he's consistency there, and it's the same design firm as well.
That's great. I had another question about these two diagrams that I'm talking about. What these dotted circles are, these portions of the circles that are on there. They look like they're roughly centered between 9th and 10th on Main Street.
It's distance from 10th and Main.
Let me think. I'm not sure if I know that. Let me think about that.
Circles these things.
That must have been some sort of area.
That's what I was guessing. I didn't know. It's not a big deal.
There's actually two of them, and I have a feeling that maybe there was.
When I see something on a map, I'm just curious what it is.
I think it was probably an area of influence.
Okay, an area of influence. I have had a long time concern about one particular portion at the bottom of Singer Hill, just before it crosses the railroad crossing. And I don't know how many here have ever walked down that hill.
I have.
When you get to the end of that hill, it's a big surprise because, and I could, and I've looked at it from both sides. From a bicyclist, yeah, maybe you want a ramp down there, but from a pedestrian standpoint, I mean, that is a sheer ramp drop. And I would like the city to do one thing or the other, either make the ramp more gradual or put a step there. And I know that's just a little bit.
Oh, the step would.
It just got recently repaved when the work was done down there, but it's still, you have to walk it to really appreciate it.
I've walked it, we have a few problems with the railroad, and
Oh,
as a matter of
yeah.
fact,
That's fine.
they really don't want that to be pedestrian friendly. They do not want to attract pedestrians to cross the railroad. So any work, and it's their right of way as well. So they're not inclined to do that. I can mention it to them again. And the other thing is we actually kept the 10th Street intersection project a distance from the railroad.
I saw that.
Because if we got it closer to the railroad, it was going to drive the cost up because we were going to have to have.
That's fine. That's fine. I just want to mention that because the pedestrians that use that are often the ones, certainly present company excluded, after the bars are closed. And people want to get back, and the elevators aren't, and the elevators are also closed. Trying to walk back up that hill. I'm just saying.
You're the only one who walks.
It's equally difficult walking down the hill.
Oh yeah.
Because it's steep grade.
Sometimes more difficult walking down that hill. Another thing was I wanted to make sure that the bridge project that I want to ask the representatives, is everyone getting the email status updates?
Should have gotten one just today.
Just today, yeah, as a matter of fact.
Two of them. One from Chris and one from me.
Yeah, exactly.
I got one from Chris.
There were.
Just know my feelings are never hurt if you just delete it.
I just want to make, and I appreciate Chris forwarding those, but to stay on top of that, I did want to make a comment about the parking consultant that did the study down here. I think was one of the best investments of city's consulting dollars ever. The guy was aces. And the last question I had was, I noticed on this particular map with the 3 red dots in a line playing tic-tac-toe has a yellow area that says closed alley streets open for construction only.
Right, and that's during construction.
And then after construction?
Well, after construction, this is a topic that we didn't get answered in the circulation study, the first phase of it. And there were several questions, was what are we going to do with those alleyways, and what are we going to do with two-way traffic on 8th Street? And we've asked, as part of the final design for the $2 million project, 103, we've asked the consultants to wrap that up for us. So we also are, the other piece of that scope of work will be turning our downtown alleys into pedestrian ways only and closing them to motor vehicles to try to just get that whole feel of the alleys different, And so we can't just go ahead and say, oh, let's close them. There has to be a process, and so that's what we're going to be looking at. Because some of the businesses need these alleys, or the ones under the bridge,
the parking
need them for
spaces.
access.
Yeah.
But I find, from a public works standpoint, they're not at all safe.
No, but
and they're just like, oh my gosh, this is So what we probably do is have controlled access, perhaps. What I would be proposing is controlled access. You can have delivery trucks, the little parking lot down there. I think we need a garbage pickup, and then otherwise try to limit
emergency vehicles.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to be going through a process to look at.
Imagine the fire.
Can they close that main? It makes sense to have at least one side of it as a pedestrian due to the fact that you have the crosswalk.
Sure.
You have the crosswalk under the bridge.
Yeah, just
crossing
for
the block.
motorized vehicle is what we're talking about, limited access.
We've gone way over time on this one, but let's see two things up here.
One quick question, the same one that I asked last time. It says that the phase 2 is going to be 10 to 12 weeks at 10th Street.
Yes.
How long is 10th and Main going to be closed?
Well, we don't want to close it at all. We don't want to close the entire intersection at all.
Right.
So we're looking at what are the construction methods we can use to keep traffic going at least in one direction and one lane in both directions during the construction of that tabletop intersection. And if we were to close it, we would have to have a really good detour route in place. And, you know, we have to kind of weigh the pros and the pluses and minuses. And we've got that concrete that we can do quick setup concrete that, you know, we want to make sure it's a good product too. So we're looking at, we want to minimize the impact on closing the intersection.
Yeah. Especially when the bridge is closed and everything else, there's no access to downtown anymore. So that would be bad.
Right.
All right, moving on to agenda number 7. Ask the Public Works Department. Did this screen get Dancing with the Stars on it now? Can this screen get Dancing with the Stars on it now? There was another question? Because we're waiting on that. Oh. I didn't see them.
My question was, behind bushes, or behind where that, it's just one way back in there, right? There's no way you can go 2 ways.
On Railroad? Railroad will stay one way except for between 6th and 7th. It'll become 2-way. So there'll be a lot of changes downtown, and it's going to be confusing at first. So we want to make sure we get the word out.
Just before I go to Alice's,
You know, when you're going through, you're not thinking about it.
just before I go Alice's, the only ones I see up here is when somebody up here pushes the button. Is there any way that if we see them, they can be put on here, or do you have to hand type
I
that?
don't even see what you see.
Okay, and I,
Because my screen
You
here
already
is broke.
have these.
okay.
Those guys don't have the.
And next month, hopefully, I will be able to see.
Because I'm sorry, I didn't even see these questions because of, okay, Alice, sorry.
Mine should be quick. Nancy, I just would like that clarification. What types of buses and trucks are going to be coming off the bridge onto Main Street?
Well, we're meeting with ODOT to determine whether or not TriMet buses are going to go back on the bridge. Once the bridge is completed, it will not have any weight limits on it anymore. But as we all know, having buses and trucks on the bridge are just awkward with the other vehicles going the other direction. So most big freight trucks don't want to go on that bridge. That really is an ODOT decision, what's allowed on the bridge. And then we have a meeting coming up with TriMet and ODOT to resolve the whole bus thing. And it could be that we leave the buses on I-205. Yeah, and it's really nice having the buses come directly down to downtown. I mean, TriMet likes that. But then also, because 7th Street is going to be turning to 2-way, it actually affects what buses can even make the maneuvers downtown around those corners. So we're looking at all 4 of the bus routes, all 4 TriMet routes that come to Oregon City, and working with TriMet and ODOT to determine whether or not they should stay on I-205 or whether or not they'd be allowed to use the bridge. They would not be allowed to turn left off the bridge. They'd have to go down to Railroad and turn right and do the right turn.
And if trucks are allowed, there will still be that waiting process to let them go through the center portion.
That's
Been doing this for 100 years.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Nancy, when you said we are going to be meeting with ODOT and TriMet, will there be opportunity for public input on that?
It's really an ODOT decision at this point, so probably
I
not.
It's going to be a town hall.
No, it'll just be staff.
Geeks, yeah. Traffic laws.
Yeah.
Okay. Next it says ask Public Works. Is that your presentation or do you have more?
Well, there's other stuff.
Oh.
So,
Busy girl.
we have, I didn't put it now. We have a schedule from the Leland Road contractor, and they're wrapping up a number of things right now. And then they will have to be doing the paving when weather allows. So just wanting you to know that we're working closely with them to get things finished out there. Something that you may be aware of is that the city budget has been sent to the printers, a draft of it. And in April, there are going to be the budget committee meetings to look at both the to look at the city budget, and then the urban renewal budget meeting, I think, is in May. But those, that information is on our website. And if you're at all interested in any of that budget information, let me know, and we can give you information about what we'll be doing in Public Works next year. And then the other thing is we've issued 2 press releases in the last week. One was for the Jug Handle bid award, $17.6 million, and we've now issued them a notice to proceed. The second was for the DEQ has just completed and issued us our new stormwater permit. So there's also information on the website about that. And I don't know if we want to make sure you get those press releases so you can send them out, so you can get lots more press releases. And I'll make sure that I didn't want to print all that. Yeah. So those are 2 important things. Then the other item I have is to remind those that are going to be on the geologic hazards subcommittee from this group. We're meeting Thursday here at 4. And Paul, I think you're on that. And William? Yes. Okay. And then from Holly Lane, she's also joining us.
Christine?
Yeah.
Christine.
Yeah. And then the other
meeting here?
Yes. Thursday at 4. And then the other thing to remind you about is the Earth Day cleanup is going to be happening on April 16th. And one site that John Lewis from Public Works is particularly working on is doing a bunch of planting down here on Singer Hill, where we did all the clearing of invasive species last year. So I encourage anybody to find out more about the annual Oregon City Earth Day event and participate. So there's specific locations to do cleanups and plantings, etc. And then
Read about it in Trail News.
yes, you can. Then the other thing, and if you do want the information, you meet at Clackamas Park at 8 o'clock in the morning, between 8 and 9, and they've always got plenty of like donuts and good stuff, coffee down there. And then you join your work crew and go off and do work. Looks like there's 6 projects here. And then you get lunch at Clackamas Park at 12:30. So it's really, really a lot of fun. It's always, memorable, and you feel like you did something productive, and plus you get good treats with it.
And you need to come to Clackamas Park because we'll be taking registrations, right?
Yes, registrations, and I think there's a liability
Yes.
So in case there's an accident or something.
16th, Saturday the 16th from
8 to 12:30.
8 to 12:30.
And it's really a great thing. And then, last of all, on May 5th at 12:30, we're having the groundbreaking for the jug handle. It'll be over at the Home Depot and the lawn next to the Home Depot. There will be a sort of a little reception starting at 12:30, and then the program will start at 1 o'clock, and that should be pretty exciting. And I think our Mayor Don Udi will be there. You're pointing out your all your information.
Somebody to say.
So, right now it looks like the governor will be speaking as well at that event. So, and that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
And if you have questions, this is actually supposed to be Ask Public Works, not
Paul's got that up there. Go ahead, Paul.
Nancy, I sent you I think I got you a copy on your email, maybe I didn't, but we had a lot of storm damage in the historic Geneva Cemetery. And Oscar, you know well.
Yes, I know Oscar very well.
Tells me that we have a lot of the old cyclone fence that's been damaged. He said he remembers someplace that you guys have some of that cyclone fence that matches up laying around. And we're going to need probably 30 feet, maybe 40 feet of it, and some help. There's somebody. But this is, obviously the Geneva Cemetery Association is a nonprofit. Doing a lot of free service for the city, maintaining the historic cemetery, and anything that we could get that could help make that happen would be very appreciated.
Yeah, I know that John Lewis is looking for fencing that could be that. We don't know for sure if we have it or not, but we're looking for it. And then I think Parks is also looking for that fencing. So they're working on it.
Larry.
I just wanted to say that, we've had ongoing problems over the years with the paths by the high school going through the residential area. My wife and I walked the dog through there last night. It's pristine.
Oh, good.
And the honor students did that.
Wow, that's great.
So it's just really, really, we appreciate it.
That's great.
Any other questions for Nancy? Okay. All right. Moving forward, agenda item number 8. Mr. Gifford.
I move to receive the approve the minutes as written. I apologize for getting the minutes out so late. It just was a really busy week, and spent 3 hours yesterday getting these minutes together. I hope.
Thank you, Dale.
I hope somebody read them.
Oh, yes.
I read
You seconded? Okay, now discussion?
Oh, I can't move to accept my own minutes, can I?
Okay.
Okay.
And now discussion?
Larry and who?
Paul.
On discussion, I'd like to see more dialogue. We had quite a bit of discussion about the Benton Park Place, and I don't know that it was adequately documented in the minutes, but when you get online, you can review what happened. You can see that we had significantly more discussion that was reflected in the minutes, as I read them.
And I kind of felt the same way. With all due respect to the job that William has to undertake, I didn't think it accurately reflected at all what had happened. It says here, everybody else has a first name except for Steve. Howard Post and Vern Butel, but when it got to Steve down here, it says Van Haverbeek recorded on the re-energizing of the PP&A. But actually, there was nothing to do with the re-energizing of PP&A. What Steve had done is he wanted to make sure that it was clear that he did not apologize to anybody in Park Place or the steering committee. He apologized to the city, and that he felt that the previous leadership hadn't done their job, and was quite adamant about that. And I kept asking during that meeting, and I wanted that in the minutes, saying we should not discuss this here at CIC. It should be discussed at a Park Place meeting amongst our steering committee. And it proceeded, and so I let Mr. Van Haverbeek have his say, and then I responded appropriately that our steering committee is made up of more than 3 individuals, and that these kind of things, we do have set bylaws like all other neighborhood associations, and that those bylaws were not followed. And it was quite a, as you say, Paul, it was quite a heated conversation there, and I think the minutes really need to accurately reflect the discourse and the tone of it.
Heated discussion ensued.
I think it needs to clarify more than just that. I think it needs to talk about that what Steve did say. He said, I apologize to the city staff, but not to the steering committee or to the Park Place steering committee, and that I responded with the fact about the bylaws. I think it needs to be in there about the fact that our bylaws were not followed as a matter of record.
Would you like to draft a little
I would
paragraph
glad
about
to.
that, and then we can approve that next month?
Okay. Okay, it's just that it was such a conversation, it took so much of our time, I felt it really needs to have a little bit more pertinent information for the record.
Although the record is there.
Verbally, but not in our minutes, and I couldn't approve these.
Put the link to the website.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
But it needs to be, these are the written ones, and it needs to be a part of that. Not all the detail, but just more of a little bit than, because there was no talk about re-energizing the PP&A, and that's what I'm addressing tonight. Okay.
And then William, just as it's instead of Millville, I just Newell, Newell.
Thank you. I'll get that right. Yes. Mule Creek Village.
And Mule Creek Village.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any thing about the minutes? But I definitely we need to really expand on that somewhat, and then I can approve it then, but not at this point. So I'm not sure if we move to go ahead and approve the minutes as adjusted, or if you want to read those before you approve them, what I put in there, or send to
I think you should
William.
read them before we approve them.
I think we approve them next month.
Yeah.
And I have to say no matter what anyway, more than him.
Anybody else have any other comments about any part of the minutes? Okay. Then I guess we're moving this till next month for approval. I'm sorry, I just didn't get it till today.
Are you removing your motion? Okay. And Paul, are you removing your second?
I'll remove my second.
Okay, I'll remove my motion.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Then let's go into old business, number 9. Chris?
You will find at the back of your packet, the form that was proposed, for use when you do, newsletters, any type of publication. And, also, you'll see another form that shows all of the neighborhoods, and I want you to know that where we have the $1.70 per house, that is an estimate at this time. The city manager has not given me
Is
the
that another?
figure.
I only have one form here.
Yeah. Is it on the?
On the back is some costs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, just so you know, that is totally an estimate. I've not been given, the figure that, the city manager has proposed for the neighborhoods at this time. But it will give you a breakout, of what it would cost, whether you do a postcard on, bright colored paper as opposed to the different types. So it will kind of give the neighborhoods an idea, for budgeting purposes for your neighborhood as to what you can do with the money that's been allocated for your neighborhood.
Chris, when I was looking at this earlier, the permit use fee, is that all neighborhoods, or do every time they make a news? I know when I've done them before for statewide papers for the Lions, it's just once a year permit, or do you need to do one each time you do a mailing here? See it down at the bottom, permit use fee $30.
I've got to find that sheet. I put it away.
It was an annual fee.
And I thought it would be just for the city, not for each neighborhood, but I don't know, that's, see what I'm looking at the bottom?
$30 permit.
I should probably get clarification on that, because I do not know myself.
Okay.
I can email everybody though the answer.
Then the other thing would be the postage at 25.6 each. Does that go for whether it's a postcard or whether it be a single sheet or a double sheet? That would be the other question. Because I'm used to seeing them around 11 to 14 cents, but I saw that 25.6 and I was wondering what that reflected. You know what I'm talking about down at the bottom?
Each, for each.
But is that for a postcard or is it for a single sheet or double folded, you know what I'm saying?
I think.
Because even a postcard standardly sent, I think, is cheaper than 25.6, but just a thought, so a clarification.
I think it is, though.
Okay.
I think that's what it costs for a postcard. So, they were actually pretty generous in, figures that they came up with.
All right.
And at the last meeting, though, you had asked about the nonprofit for the city, and I checked with Esther, who takes care of the mailings here at the city, and they do not have that.
Do they do bulk rate though for the city?
Yeah, and we can get bulk rates through the printing.
All right, I don't have it on my screen, but William has it on his, that he has a question.
I have a concern that there are, to my knowledge, 3 qualified printers in Oregon City. And it seems to me as though this type of a project ought to be going out to bid. And I don't know if we need to make a motion for it, but I would feel better if this was bidded out.
Same thing.
Oh, okay. You take it.
I thought the same thing, and no offense to whoever made the decision. I thought maybe when I read that it was maybe just that they were the printers used by the city, but again,
It is.
by experience, I know that when I went out to bid, I got better pricing on doing a statewide paper, mailing 5,000. This is a lot less for some of our neighborhoods, but I don't think it would hurt us if we do have Oregon City printers here to at least ask for a bid and see if, for neighborhood newsletters. So I like to make a motion that, and I'm not sure if you want to do that, Chris, or if you want me to assist you with that, since I've got the experience of having done that. Okay. I make a motion that we ask Chris to put it out to a bid process with at least those 3 local Oregon City printers. Do we? I guess not. The way you said you made a motion, but okay.
Which 3 are they?
I'm not sure.
Well, there's the OCP downtown, there's the Minuteman Press, and there's Fuels Impression Printing.
What about the UPS? By Fred Meyer.
sorry.
What about UPS by Fred Meyer and Kinko's?
Kinko's, sure.
Kinko's, you got UPS by Fred Meyer.
I think he was thinking locally owned rather than nationally owned, but
They're local franchisees.
Yeah,
I know I used to.
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I think there's 5 of them.
Do we? Oh, we do. Okay. Okay.
Or maybe leave it
Okay.
open to,
Canvas all of Portland.
maybe an open Oregon City process.
Yeah.
Go buy local.
A lot of them, I'm sure she has to individually go and tell them all the details of what she got here, so, yeah.
I'm not going individually.
I know.
It will be by email.
But that's
I
okay.
don't have time for
Don't
that.
expect that.
I feel that I want to speak to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So for you, I could figure that. Chris? Does the Hazelville Wrestling Farm have money for a postcard now, or not? For Maze?
I believe that decision was made at the last, review to take money from other neighborhoods.
So we can do a postcard?
Thank you for clarification, because I didn't see it in the minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was decided.
I know there was a lot of discussion on it, and I was going to propose a question, and Kathy did, so.
And I guess part of my question on that too would be from what neighborhoods, because I know we've only used part of ours, but I'm gonna be using a lot for the new mailer coming up since we've not done one.
There's money allocated for Tower Vista,
Okay.
and I know we're not gonna get Tower Vista up and going by the end of
Okay,
the
cool.
And then,
They'd be quite neighborly and help us out.
well, and the other portion of that is on this here form, I sign it, and somebody else, I guess I can have Tom sign it. I guess I have to get my.
sign in 2 places, you as the,
Designer.
person doing the designing, and then as the chair, and then you would be the executive.
This is to make sure, you weren't here, Kathy, let's make sure that somebody doesn't use your community funds to doing a postcard or newsletter without everyone being aware of it on your board.
And then Tom can sign that I'm legit.
I'm not going there.
My bad, keep it packed and ready. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Chris? Thank you, Chris. Moving ahead, it's 8:30. Guess we didn't get off by 7:15. New business, committee reports, Geological Symposium Committee. We've already addressed that. Next is Bylaws Review Committee. It says here that, well, I haven't had a lot of time to put that together. However, I've done some homework in this book right here because I'm looking at rewriting the bylaws with a committee in Park Place to address some of the things that have happened. I went through and started looking at a lot of your bylaws that are available online. Some neighborhood associations don't have their bylaws out there, so it was hard to see all of them, but gave me a pretty good idea. Then I talked to Kathy Hogan, and I know we had bylaws approved here when we started this back up, but also I got the ones from back in 2000, and Kathy's got a great reference to it for all kinds of them. So I'm getting the paperwork together so this committee can get together and discuss our bylaws, what needs to be changed, just like we're doing in Park Place. And there's a lot of things in our bylaws that you all have in yours that were left out of ours for some reason. So anyway, we are working on it, making some progress. Once we have everything together, which this is a piece I just got tonight, we'll form that bylaws committee and come up with something to present to all of you. Okay, next on the business is video opportunities. Also on my part, I worked on that one a little bit too. I had a conversation with Dan Holliday that wasn't about politics, and sorry, Dan, and we discussed the fact that, like, I have a video camera that's got 14 megs, and I do a lot of videos with it that I can put on YouTube and other things. He is saying that at the media center up there, he can train me on using a camera that we could take out and do these little vignettes at each neighborhood. So again, I want to explain what I had in mind for this and what I discussed with Dan. We would have about a 3-minute overview of what the CIC is and what we're meant to accomplish and what we do and when we meet. And then we would go into a little 3-minute vignettes from each neighborhood. And it doesn't have to be the chair. It should be somebody who can speak well, have a good presence to speak about their community. For instance, in Park Place, we would have somebody maybe by the Welcome to the Park Place neighborhood sign and talk about, hi, this is Park Place neighborhood. We came into being such and such. We do this in our neighborhood. We comprise this many households. Our meetings are scheduled such and such. We'd like to invite you to find out more about us at our website. Again, 3 minutes. So I was telling William earlier that I'd like to encourage each of you to kind of come up with a script with your crew of 3 minutes. Test it out with your voice and have someone time it with a second hand. But come up with 3 minutes from each of your neighborhoods. And then we'll schedule a time when we can try to film it. And then we can see how it all flows together and run it by you. But we need to get started sometime, so the ball's rolling now. I leave it up to each of the neighborhoods to come up with those 3 minutes. Now this one's a little bit different than what William's doing, so I'll let him talk about that.
I spent so much time doing a bad job on the minutes that I haven't worked at all on the video project that I was proposing.
I understand. I was busy on place stuff. Okay, then moving right along to D, let's talk about reactivation of the neighborhood associations, Gaffney Lane and Tower Vista.
Well, that reactivation is once again fallen on Chris and my shoulders, although we'd sure like some more support from some other CIC reps to attend a reactivation meeting to show neighborhoods that there is more to the CIC, and there's certainly more to the neighborhood involvement than just Chris and me. So Chris had proposed April
21st.
April 21st.
On Thursday, I told you.
It is on a Thursday.
It wasn't.
Oh, yes, right. That's why we plan them. Thank you very much, John.
Have you checked with the school to see if they have a music program that night at all? Because the spring music program starts.
That's a good question. I did when I went out for America Reads or Read America Day, whatever it was, and I went out to Gaffney Lane and I was reading Dr. Seuss books. But I got to chatting with the school secretary. She was very excited about the reactivation of the neighborhood association. She said she would be more than happy to talk it up and get it involved in the school newsletter and so on. And I think this is an area that we haven't really discussed so much about getting the schools in our neighborhood associations, for those neighborhoods that do have schools, getting them involved in the neighborhood associations as well. So I think that's a good tie-in, and we ought to remember to invite our schools to send a representative to our neighborhood associations.
I can add some things to that. I did at one time have King School, the PTO, and there, and McLaughlin, and I would send them my information when my meetings were, because we had the South End and Hazelgrove at the same time. Either didn't put it in or it didn't do any good. Sorry. I mean, I did it for a whole year and I gave up. Because we actually had one time the South End and Hazelgrove invited Power Vista to come, and we did have like 2 people show up. So, but then we didn't do any more newsletters because somebody here complained about us trying to get it going again. So we quit. John and I.
Okay. Let's go on the round table. Oh, were you on? I don't see it on here. Sorry. Sorry, Larry.
Well, I have a proposal. I think that we owe our veterans that have come back from the war disabled a little bit, and what I was thinking is Clackamas Park could have the overnight parking, camper parking and trailers provided for free for the disabled veterans, and along with that, for just handicapped people, if you get a little skidster or something, you kind of level out an area where these guys could get down and fish like they did when they had their legs. So just a thought if you guys are at all interested in it.
William.
Well, Larry, I'm so interested in that I would make a motion that the CIC writes a letter to, who would be the appropriate person to write a letter to, Mr. Mayor? City Council?
I talked to Scott, and Scott thought it was a good idea.
This is one of those instances, William, where I'd like to see if we prepare a letter that we all get CC'd on it first so we can see what it says before it goes out. Yeah.
Oh, you asked me to do that, and I won't write any more letters until you get a chance to see it.
And get approved on the back.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor.
Basically, what it would be is the state law already does that, or the state does that. So we could probably just go by their guidelines on it.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Did someone second it? Okay. All right. Those in favor of us preparing a letter?
We don't get any.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it again. I guess I'm gonna have to start looking out. Sorry, I apologize.
I think that you probably could find some money somewhere along the line with the this either disabled veterans or with the Veterans Association or one of the groups that supports them, that you might be able to find some money.
And Scott might know about that for involvement with that. Scott Archer. Okay, Kathy.
Well, because I'm a Gateway Elks, and I belong to the Vets Committee. I make wheelchair bags for Phyllis and Phil Hart, and I make wheelchair bags for the Vets Hospital. We go there once a year at Christmas. We do bingo, and they appreciate those things. So even maybe the Gateway or the Georgia City Elks would be willing to help them do something like that.
Have you ever tried to go to DFW? Right here, you might find that you would find good for them more than an ample partner or somebody that can really link in. Because if this is done right, it could be just I really applaud you, but it's really a big deal and highly received, well received for our community, for the vets, for everyone. So it's just something probably long overdue, and thank you.
Well, thank you.
William.
I would want to be clear as I was discussing this with Larry that there are 2 proposals. One proposal is to provide free camping for disabled vets at Clackamas Park. That's one proposal. The second proposal is to provide handicapped fishing access, whether they're vets or not, but handicapped access for fishers.
So that building the proper support groups and all that probably would lend more to the cause. Okay, all those in favor of us preparing a letter that we could all read and look at before it's sent, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Okay, motion passes. Okay, sorry.
A couple of new business items.
Oh, and William's got some new business items.
One is, and Ray, I don't know if you're prepared to speak on your idea or not, but I've been thinking about it an awful lot. Okay. Would you like to speak to the idea? And come up and use the microphone, would you please?
I think I'm loud enough.
No, because I listened to you last month painstakingly, and you get the first sentence out just fine, and then it drifts off, and I can't hear what you're saying. Thank you, girl.
Hey, Gordon Hallandale. Thank you. Thought you looked familiar. Just my idea was, I work for the tourism department of Clackamas County, and they have a board called the Tourism Development Council, and every year they at least have a retreat. It's called retreat, but it's really work. But it's more of a laid back situation where they, it is open to the public. It has to be, and so recently they were at the Museum of the Oregon Territory, and the retreat was to go over ideas, go over the business plan, and it was a really non-threatening kind of environment. It was catered, so of course when people eat, they're happy. So I thought it would be a great way to introduce and to get to know each other a little bit more, and take it out of an environment like this, and do it, or the brainstorming is you get a lot of brainstorming going on, have somebody that MCs it and kind of moves it along and kind of gets us a little focused on what we really want to do for Oregon City, not only for our neighborhoods, but because we're all connected. It's all a big, huge thing, that we're just pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that make a big picture. And I think doing a retreat in that manner might help us be able to a little focus on what we want to bring to the table, and also becoming more partners with the city of Oregon City rather than them, us.
Sorry. I was going to say, we're going to put that on the agenda for next time to talk about it more in detail, because we are running 8:45 now again.
Thank you.
I think with the advent of a city manager that is more neighborhood association friendly, and a mayor who supports our neighborhood association so much that he actually attends the CIC meeting.
Oh, is that who that is?
I was too polite to say anything, Your Honor. But I think it would not be out of line, and we can discuss this again next month, as to maybe having him make presentations to show the neighborhood associations what support we have behind us. And I don't know if we can afford a facilitator, but something. And then we also are going to have to talk about the timing.
Right, timing, and also just that everybody has an important thing to bring to the table, and your passions matter. And that's one thing I would encourage you guys to think about. What is it that makes you do what you do here? And that's really important.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, I know we were discussing this earlier, the fact that, because I've been through so many of them at U.S. Bank, Fred Meyer, all these corporations, and it's important to have boards where we can put thoughts and ideas up. Yes, Thomas.
Well, I would agree that this is something that we really should strive for. I'm a little concerned about the timing until such time as we have reviewed the bylaws and gotten that in order, so that we know what our charge is in terms of representing our neighborhood associations and our city. Once we understand the charge, then I think is a good time to sit down and figure out how we're going to achieve it.
It might be a chicken and egg type thing, though, too, Tom, is that we could be developing and crystallizing that in a retreat setting, rather than singly as trying to do it in this environment.
Well, we asked that we have volunteers to serve on a committee to look at those bylaws and come up with some suggestions.
Yeah.
I do think that has to take place.
Oh, absolutely.
Prior to, not simultaneously.
By the fall, nothing real soon.
Okay.
I had two other items. One is at the finale of last month's marathon meeting. Yeah, it seemed like yesterday. Well, it was yesterday for me, because I got to watch this thing about 3 or 4 times. Chair Guile gave me a large packet of paper regarding the Oregon City Shopping Center, and I subsequently met with Paul Edgar, and we reviewed the Oregon City Shopping Center plans, and I'm going to give you a copy of this. This is what we And I don't know how many of you are familiar with land use process, but you get these little applications and you have to check down at the bottom. It does not conflict with their interest. The proposal conflicts with their interest for the reasons attached, or the proposal would not conflict with their interest. The changes noted below are included, and that's the one that Paul and I checked and said request consideration of new low energy lighting systems, and that was the only real comment that we had for the Oregon City Shopping Center, and then we signed it. Which leads to the next question that I had, is it seems to me as though the CIC needs a land use committee, because there are land use issues that come up, and often they are time sensitive, as when you receive a bundle of stuff and realize the due date is, you know, in just a few days, rather than having to convene the entire CIC, that sometimes it would be most expedient to have a CIC land use committee.
Is there something in our bylaws currently about having a land use committee?
No.
Then that's something that we would put in there.
There used to be.
Okay, then that's what we have.
It used to be when we were down at the
Yeah.
fire station.
You're right. It used, and that was the purpose of this.
I did.
But I agree, but I'd like to put that under new business also for next week, so we can move forward. And which brings up a really good packet again. And I'd like to have a round of applause for William doing such a great job with it that I brought you to do this one. No, this is actually one I think should be fairly decent. It's mixed use downtown district. It looks like a natural resource overlay district. I'm not sure. This came in before I was busy this weekend. So, anyways, while he looks at that and enjoys reading, let's start with the roundtable because of the time. Let's start with Paul and move this way. Okay. David. Ingram. Roundtable.
We have a meeting, May 19th, I believe, South End and Hazel Grove are gonna have a meeting. And we're discussing changes, whether, what dates or months we're gonna do, and yeah, I think that's it for now.
Okay. Tom?
I think Kathy Cree will handle Hazel Grove Western Farms, thanks.
Okay, Steve? Yes. Okay.
I just have a comment for all of you. Kathy, you melted my heart when you told me that you do stuff for the VA. And I spent a year in the burn ward when I was in the military. And those little packets and little things mean everything in the world. So I just want to thank everybody for your vote.
I've got a few things. Number one, I'd like to thank William. It does take a lot of time to sit and watch that tape over and over again. When he's actively participating, he can't take all the minutes he'd like to. Even though he's secretary, he still has to watch those over and over again. So I know it takes a lot of effort to hear voices and to write it all down and get the whole thought down. So I just want to say my appreciation to William for what he does try to do on that. Number two, I emailed several of you about the April 8th, the request for me to MC the event at Oregon City High School, and got approved through our city manager and everyone. That was this the right thing for me to do, as long as I interjected that it was all positive and non-biased. And then he was going to send that, he probably did, to the city council after I sent it out to him, my wording on it, to Dan Fowler and Dan Holliday. This last week, I hadn't heard anything, so after getting most of your approvals, I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. I was asked to MC that event. Turns out that they decided to postpone it, cancel it. And I felt kind of like a fool after getting you all involved and spending that time saying this is what I will require and what I won't do. But apparently they don't feel there's enough interest right now, or it's too far off. So both Dans decided to postpone the meeting until a later date. So sorry to have bothered you all. False call. Sorry?
We're ahead of the curve, so we're.
Yeah. Well, when they had contacted me saying it's April 8th, we've got an Oregon City High School, and we want you to do this and that, I wanted to make sure that I did not overstep my bounds, and that I approved it to all of you that this is what I would do and how I would do it. So Yeah, I just didn't want to take it on. Next, I wanted to talk about Park Place. We did have a steering committee meeting a few weeks ago, and we're going to have a third one coming up about the third week of April before our general meeting in May. And I spoke to our currently steering committee, and the one thing I pointed out to them is in reviewing our records and reviewing what minutes that we could find, I found no approvals for any of our steering committee members for years going back. So officially, really nobody was a member of the steering committee because no one really everybody was in the neighborhood. And so I put out an email to everyone saying if you don't respond that you can't make the meeting are interested, and those who showed up, I presumed wanted to be a part, and those that didn't, some of them responded to me, it's time for me to step aside, let some new blood come in. And that's pretty much what I've done. I looked at the bylaws. It's kind of a fiefdom, and several of these were, once you're appointed, when do you get off the steering committee? It's not for free. It's not a medieval system. So it's supposed to be voted on annually for people on the steering committee. And so I'm looking at your bylaws to strengthen our bylaws. How do you remove somebody? What do you do if your chair is not really functioning the way they should? What are the steps? And things like that. So we're going to build those into our bylaws, and I'll share those with you once we get those completed. The other thing I did is I looked at what true representation we have of our neighborhoods. I often say for years, I mean, you've heard me complain and others complain in their neighborhoods that your meetings aren't well attended maybe. Sometimes we didn't even have 5. Sometimes we didn't even have our own steering committee or anybody at some of these meetings. So my plan was to reactivate and re-energize this. I divided Holcomb Boulevard going up, and you're all pretty much familiar with Holcomb. There's Upper Holcomb, which is the curve right there by Holcomb's Middle School. That's going to be upper, and then there's going to be lower and left, north and south. And so what I did is for the first time ever, I went and talked to lots of our people have talked to them, but we've never asked the Oregon View Mayor and Clackamas Heights to be a part of all the steering committee. They have 200 residents there. And so I've asked them and they voted on approving that on one of them on our steering committee, their manager. And in talking with her that evening, we found out a lot of stuff about their mailing systems. A lot of them don't even get their own mail unless they pay $40 for a key, which none of us have to do at our residences. But there's other things. We found out that they like to volunteer when we do a cleanup, but no one's ever reached out to them because we can't reach them without some kind of communication. So they're going to get together some volunteers to help us on different projects. They're going to be more involved. PTA, like William was saying, I'm meeting with them next week. I've already asked new people to start joining on the steering committee, and we're going to be rotating people off that have been there for a long time because it's time for some new blood. As soon as I'm done, it's time for me to start moving on and somebody else to step in. And just because you're there doesn't mean you're there for life. That's the way I look at it. And sometimes we were short with people, and I think that's why we kept the same people. So we're doing some good changes over there. Again, we have one in April, and we have a general meeting in May where we elect the new officers. And I'm temporary until May. Who knows? Maybe I'll be elected chair and keep moving with my plans. That's it. William.
Thanks for this pile of doom. Ellendale. Oh, I'll let you talk about the meeting tomorrow night. This land use application transmittal, Paul, we're going to get together on this one again too. I hope that those representatives that were active remember several months ago when we were up at the police station. It's been half a year ago or so. This project was proposed by Clackamas County Water Environment Services West. This is for routing that sewer line, the new sewer line over the bridge. Well, guess what? They finally have this thing, and I think after the large presentation that they gave, to my recollection,
it's changed.
Oh, the problem is it hasn't. To my recollection, the biggest issue that we had was putting a big pipe on that bridge.
Right.
Guess what?
It's still there.
It looks to me, and
It should be on the side of the bridge now.
yeah, I haven't read this in detail, but it still looks like it's,
Perhaps Nancy could give us some insight.
yeah. What do you know about
Well,
this project?
from what I
really?
know, they were originally proposing to put 2 pipes on the bridge deck itself, which would have had an impact on the multi-use trail. And they worked with us to come up with a different proposal now, which is to put either the 24 or the 30-inch pipe on the side of the bridge, so it won't be in the multi-use path area, it'll be on the side. And then the second pipeline, they've decided they don't really need it yet, so they're gonna wait and determine when they need it, then they'll come and figure out where to put it. Because they could even possibly decide to a 5 bridge, they could build their own, by then they may need a pipe bridge, and so the second pipe they decided to postpone.
So it will hang on the south side of the bridge?
It's actually on the north side of the bridge.
North
Well, that's north, on the I-205 side, the upstream.
Upstream side, thank you.
Yeah, well, that was, there's Carnegie.
The reason they don't want to put it downstream, I guess it's easy to get to it, and they didn't want people jumping off of it. I guess on the upstream side, you can't really access it.
There we go. So, hanging off the side of the bridge. That's fine. I apologize for not knowing more about this. I haven't had a lot of time to peruse this. I know. I'll be pleased at least I know what it's about.
Sorry, Paul.
On CCSD, with an interesting thing occurred. We found out that they have been piping their clean water through the mill and then injecting it into the Willamette River at approximately where the water comes in. The permit for allowing that to occur was not renewed, and as of April 1st, there's been a question that now exists about how Tri-Cities and Clackamas Sewer District can inject their water because they were using a common permitted pipe owned by the mill at the falls. So all sorts of funny things are in the flux at this moment, according to what a review of the permits from the EPA or DEQ that allows that. Maybe Nancy knows if it was renewed or what's happened, but.
Well, I didn't know that the sewer, either the sewer districts were ever actually discharging at the mill. What I did understand is the mill has permits because they had treated wastewater at their site, and they had DEQ permits for their wastewater discharge into the river after being treated. And I think that the sewer districts were interested in getting the discharge rights for those permits so that they could have more environmental capacity at the plants, and that's all I know about it. But I wasn't aware that they were actually discharging anything through the mill.
It was my understanding the fact that they were discharging.
They don't have a wastewater treatment there, but the mill does stuff.
They were taking their water and shipping it up via pipe up there. But that's, we'll have to wait to hear what it says.
Like you said, Paul, there's things in flux.
He who has the gavel can control that. I say no. Sorry, didn't use it. Rachel, I'm sorry.
Okay, last time I was here, I announced the Chamber of Commerce Community Service Awards Luncheon, which is, your note said April 16th, is actually April 15th, it's a Friday.
Thank you. One more.
So this is just information on it, and there's a link at the bottom, how to register, but you also go online to organization.org and register.
Before I go any further down to Nancy, do you want to address anything about the replacement for the Main Street representative, or that has been addressed at least?
Once again, we received a request to be excused from the Main Street representative, and this has gone far beyond the limits of what the bylaws state regarding that, and so I think that we really need to recognize that representative is no longer active, and so consequently, I called the Main Street manager, Lloyd Purdy, and apprised him of the situation, and he's going to be trying to find another representative to be coming to the CIC meeting. So that's the status there.
It's great to have Main Street in the chamber.
In the CIC.
In the CIC, that's what I meant. Nancy?
I don't have anything else.
Chris?
Just one thing, that you can let your neighborhoods know that on Saturday, April 30th, there will be another shred event, cell phone recycling, and National Drug Take Back Day.
What's the date?
Saturday, April 30th,
You take back our drugs.
from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the police department in the parking lot. And the first two banker boxes are free for your shredding, and it's on-site shred, and $1 per box for each additional box. Donations are welcome and will be applied to the Crime Prevention Fund for our K-9 and the summer camp program. You can bring your old cell phones in to be recycled, and those are sent to the 911 cell phone bank, and they are used for senior citizens and victims of abuse, so they can call 911. They're all cleaned off, so reserve police officers will be on site to collect the unwanted prescriptions and non-prescription drugs that you might have. It can be controlled drugs, non-controlled, and over-the-counter. And they will not accept any IV solutions, injectables, syringes, or medical waste. So,
Get rid of your bottles too that have your little.
you can bring everything.
And just to piggyback a little bit on that, I know when I was a kid, my mom taught me to dump drugs down the toilet so that they get washed away. And now we found that kind of thing, it introduces a whole lot of chemicals into the water cycle. Into the water cycle, yes. And some kinds of things that are disrupting the endocrine system of fish and other things that are in the water. So
Frog with 5 legs.
yeah, exactly. So now it's really awesome that we have these take back programs, but if you can't participate in it, just throw it in the trash and it'll go to the landfill, and it's better than putting it in our water cycles.
I believe actually, if a person was not able to make our event, that you could come to the police department. I know Westland Police, their evidence staff will take it and secure it until they go to the burn in Brooks. So,
That's great. I've got some stuff in my house I don't want.
So
yeah.
don't call 911 and have them pick it up.
Oh, and then the other thing is it's important to get rid of this stuff because they're also finding that when typically youngsters, teenagers, they go into your medicine chest, and that's how a lot of addictions form, are just using drugs that they shouldn't be using in the first place. So get rid of your old drugs and dispose of them properly is really terrific. How you doing?
Okay, Vern.
Vern Buoff, Rivercrest. The citywide food drive is still going on and will continue till the 15th. Looking good. The Rivercrest Neighborhood Association that sponsors the annual Easter egg hunt is Saturday the 23rd. So if you haven't seen a truckload of goodies dumped out in a park, come and be there before 10 o'clock. We're still asking for donations and we'll accept the same. Our only fundraiser we have is selling the hanging baskets. And we normally do this just prior to Mother's Day. And this year that will fall on April 30th, the Saturday date. So might keep that in mind. And I think Patty has something here.
Yeah, I do, but I'm going to put on one of my other hats. I also work for the Clackamas County Historical Society, and I have the calendar of events that will be happening. The museum is open now every other Saturday and on Wednesdays. It's the library, the Family History Library is there and is open that same time period. So we have some events going on. We're still trying to get the museum open all the time. We need volunteers, but if you have an interest or you want to take these to your neighborhood meetings, I'd appreciate it. Tell us everything that's going to be happening for the next 3 months at the Historical Society.
You guys also have some kind of free thing on that.
Yes, yes. Well, we got a couple of things. That's at the Stevens Crawford House, and it is. We had a free event that we had that were open for a day, but now that exhibit is up, the Stevens Crawford House has 280 hats that go back from the trail days up until the Jackie Kennedy Pillbox hats, and many of them are on display this season and will be through November. We're also going to do one of the items we're going to do here is the old teas that the house used to do, only it's going to be down at the Museum of the Territory. We're going to have a tea on May 14th, so it'll be fun. And anyway, I have these flyers.
Patty, would you like to kind of let those pass around here
Sure.
a moment, and so everybody can take one, at least for the newsletter? Okay. Anything else, Patty?
No.
Okay. Moving right to the very center table. Nothing?
We're getting ready for our new park pretty quick.
Okay. Skip and Ray. No.
Just let you know that the Hillendale Neighborhood Association is tomorrow at 7 at the police station. Would encourage people watching and everybody to come. We're actually going to have Diane Phillips, who's going to talk about a fuel station at Safeway. I know that we've been really working hard on what the Safeway is going to look like and that and stuff. But I know a lot of people aren't realizing that there's a fuel station possibility too. So we're going to talk about that. So I told you guys to go and all
Alice? Did you say pass? Okay. Mr. Mayor?
When I started off with the city Nancy talking about
I'm sure on behalf of all of us, we really want to express our appreciation for you even being at these meetings. You probably could be home doing something like resting. So really appreciate you coming out to our meetings. And is there anything you'd like to impart?
Excuse me, can you use the microphone, please? Because I won't be able to
Yeah, and put on the timer, 3 minutes. 3?
There's been a press release that you were talking about the Oregon City Shopping Center. Kaiser's dental clinic is going to be opening there. They're leasing a 6,500 foot area for their dental clinic. So Kaiser's coming to town.
Oh, great. Probably right next to the Hacienda. That's what big open space.
Right, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, with that, hey, we got out of here before 10. It's 9:10, and the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.